It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis, right here on Boom Broadcasting. We are streaming live for your viewing pleasure this evening. And I am so excited because I'll be honest, it's been tough. It's been really tough being a fan of that team behind me right here. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough couple months, but the Dallas Cowboys have finally, and I said finally, won a game. I was also having the privilege to be at Wallace Wade Stadium this past weekend for the Duke football game against Virginia Tech, and that was just as great. That was a great time. I'll have in Aaron Schneider from the Gridiron Address a little later on, as well as Chris Deluca, the host of Dugout Debrief, to talk some football, talk the Monday Night Football game, Harbaugh versus Harbaugh tonight. It's going to be an awesome show, jam-packed for you guys, and I can't wait to tell you guys all about everything that's happening. Guys, and here's why we do these live streams, because we want to hear from you. So if you're watching us live, drop a hello in the comment section. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, you'll get a shout out live on air. And also, we're not talking necessarily the UConn game that just wrapped up, the Maui Invitational. The defending back-to-back national champions UConn Huskies actually lost in the Maui Invitational in overtime. Memphis winning 99-97. Memphis staying undefeated, while UConn loses in overtime. Dan Hurley, who rejected the Lakers offer, got technicaled in the overtime period. And then the entire teams had to be separated. UConn, Memphis got into it towards the end, but Memphis able to hold on and upset UConn. So that is a big thing. And Jason saying hello. And yes, we're also streaming live on Facebook. You guys can watch us. Jason dropped a great 3 from Deep episode earlier today at noon. And so we've also modified the Boom Broadcasting schedule to help our content creators, but also give you guys entertainment, give you guys some enjoyment this Thanksgiving week. But we really want to balance them spending time with their families and their loved ones and being able to create content. And sometimes it's a therapy session for us to do these type of shows. So we don't take it lightly. We had 3 from Deep earlier today. Sean dropped 1 full episode. It Stinks / Wrestle of Destiny. He combined his 2 podcasts to talk earlier today. That dropped at 3. Out of Pockets tonight. Mouthing Off with Mike will not do a nightcap tonight. And update with that. He's actually attending Raw live. So we hope he enjoys that, but he will be back Friday for a Black Friday SmackDown nightcap. And so we posted the schedule on our social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. You guys can go check that out. And we just hope you guys are enjoying the content. One of the things I'd love to talk about are the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys upset the Washington Commanders 34-26. Now, this is a segment we love to call Homer's House, where I go through my favorite teams before Chris joins me, before Aaron joins me. I want to share a little bit about what happened over the weekend. But I want to start with the Cowboys and Commanders. 34-26 is crazy because Dallas has not been good this year. This might have actually helped that this game was on the road. Cowboys only have won on the road at Cleveland week 1. The Giants, the Steelers on Monday Night Football, or Sunday Night Football that turned into Monday Night Football. And they've been on a 5-game losing streak. Now, granted, those 5 games have been against really tough teams. Detroit playing some of their best ball. San Francisco 49ers, Dallas has never matched up well against. The Atlanta Falcons retooled with Kirk Cousins. The Philadelphia Eagles are running roughshod through the NFC East right now having a 2.5-game lead after yesterday's results. And the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, just running up and down against the beat-up Cowboys team. So it's not like the schedule's been easy and Dallas has given up some cupcake games. But for the Washington Commanders, the Commanders have dropped 3 straight now after starting the season 7-2. But the Cowboys still fought a competent team. Now, I didn't expect the Dallas Cowboys to put up 34 points. This was a season high for the Dallas Cowboys. And the most they've scored since week 1, where they beat the Browns 33-17. That was the day Dak Prescott got re-signed. You have a good quality road win because Cleveland only lost 1 game at home last year. You do it by double digits. Like, it looks like everything's going to remain the same. And then after the Saints game, after the Ravens game, you're like, okay, probably not. And then they get a couple wins against the Giants and Steelers, and you're like, okay. But then this 5-game losing streak just took the wind and the sails out of the Cowboys. It looked ugly. It was ugly. But I'm very proud of the Cowboys for taking control yesterday. And I'll be honest, I'm going to drop an article later this week on Fans First Sports Network at fansfirstsports.com. I'm going to drop an article saying, should Dallas have really tried to win this game? Maybe in the draft position, it doesn't help Dallas. Dallas all of a sudden would have been 3-8. Now they're 4-7. And there's a lot of teams who are jockeying for that draft order. Currently, the Giants, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Patriots, the Panthers, the Titans, the Jets, the Browns. I mean, you have 8 teams who have a worse record than the Dallas Cowboys. You have the Bears, Saints, and Bengals who have the same record as Dallas right now. And you're like, okay, well, at the 8th spot, what could you do? I mean, of course, you can find a GM depending on your scouting department. Obviously, you wouldn't have the jockey enough for position to go get a Travis Hunter of that caliber. But Dallas did something this weekend that was very necessary. Does this save Mike McCarthy's job? Probably not. Does this save the job of some of the players on this roster right now? Probably not. Does this push the Cowboys to a potential playoff berth? It's almost a foregone conclusion. It's not happening, and it's not in the cards for the Cowboys. They're currently the 14th seed in an NFC that only has 16 teams. So the likelihood of Dallas overcoming a 2.5 game deficit against the Commanders for that final playoff seed in the NFC and to string on some of these games, even though they do have a favorable schedule coming up, then it's not going to help you in the draft wise, but it does feel good to finally have a win for the first time since that Sunday night turned into a Monday midnight game, an overtime victory in Pittsburgh. And it's a very favorable schedule. You got the Giants, you got the Bengals, then you play at Carolina, and then you play the Buccaneers before you finish out the season against the Eagles and Commanders. I mean, these are 4 toss-up games. I won't even say winnable. I won't say they're outright losing, but they're toss-ups. The Giants just waived Daniel Jones. He cleared waivers. He's officially a free agent. He can sign wherever he'd like to. They play the Giants this Thursday on Thanksgiving. They play Joe Burrow after that, I believe, on Monday Night Football. So a little bit of an extended rest period for a banged-up Cowboys team. And then you play the Carolina Panthers on the road in a short week. And then you play the Buccaneers a week after that on Sunday Night Football. If that game doesn't get flexed out of that spot, there's all these games that are just like, you don't know if Dallas could go after losing 5 straight, win 4 straight, and all of a sudden be at 8-7, which doesn't really help this team moving forward. Or you don't know if they'll lose out and be 4-13 and have a better potential at a high draft pick. You just don't know when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. But Aaron already saying Panthers are better than Cowboys. We'll find out. We'll find out when the Carolina Panthers host the Dallas Cowboys December 15th at 1 o'clock. So those tickets have not gotten any cheaper, by the way. So wanted to acknowledge the Cowboys hurting their draft position, but it felt really good just like it felt really good for the Duke football team to cook the Virginia Tech Hokies. I was able to attend this game with my dad, and it was a lot of fun. I am still trying to recover my voice from trying to, be the loudest person in my section. And there was a lot of Virginia Tech people here. There were a lot of Virginia Tech people, but one thing I do want to say is this was senior night. Looking at all the seniors coming out, Star Thomas, Eli Pankel, Jordan Moore, Ozzie Nicholas, the star linebacker, Jalen Stinson, one of our best nickel corners, a very great blitzing corner, had half a sack in this game, had a tackle for a loss, 3 passes deflected. I mean, there are some gems on this Duke team that have helped them, but there's a lot of guys who are not seniors. Quarterback Malik Murphy to be one of them. Chandler Rivers, star corner, being another. I feel like this Duke team did really well, and Manny Diaz should be very, very proud of himself. I mean, taking this Duke squad from what they've been in the past, I mean, they lose Mike Elko. They lose Riley Leonard. Okay, there's this team was 7-5 last year after beating Pittsburgh in that final game on the back of Grayson Loftus, who's now the backup to Malik Murphy. They've already won one more game than they did last year and potentially have the chance to bear their record by 2 games. Manny Diaz has come to this Duke team and has really, really energized this school more than I could have ever imagined. When your only losses are to Georgia Tech, who's done really good this year, ranked SMU, ranked Miami, all 3 of those games were, hey, you lost. Sometimes the ball didn't bounce your way. Miami, you got a Heisman Trophy candidate and Cam Ward there. But Duke, what they were able to do is they were able to play great defense this year. They were able to beat UNC. They were able to beat NC State. And they have the opportunity next week to beat Wake Forest, going 3-0 against your main ACC interstate rivals. And this could be a sign for things to come with Malik Murphy just being a sophomore. He'll continue to evolve. He'll continue to improve. But Duke football wasn't the only team that did well for the university. I want to talk a little bit about Duke basketball. Duke, it's a great time to be a Blue Devil fan. Of course it is. Duke had a tough obstacle in their way this past week. The night before I went to go see Duke's football team play at Wallace Wade Stadium, they were on the road, a true road game against Arizona. And it has been a long time since Duke has went on the road in a true road game and defeated an AP top 25 team. And they were able to do that. Not only did Duke go on the road this early in the season with freshman Cooper Flagg, with freshman Con Knipple, you have Tyrese Proctor who stayed. You have Caleb Foster who stayed. You have Maluwach, a freshman. But you have guys who have transferred in, who are putting up, great production off the bench. I mean, you have Sion James. You have Mason Gillis from Purdue, who, went to the Final Four last year with Zach Edey. Malik Brown. I wrote an article when Malik Brown was a Syracuse Orange member. And Malik Brown, Aaron in the comments still, again, what the heck? I'm not even going to pronounce the acronym of what that stands for because I'm not going to cuss on Out of Pocket because we got to keep it PG. But you know what? You can be entitled to your wrong opinion. Just when you get on Out of Pocket, don't be out of pocket like that here in a few minutes when I get both you, Aaron Schneider, the host of Gridiron Address, and the host of Dugout Debrief, Chris Deluca, here in just a few minutes. I'll say this, Duke really impressed me against Arizona, because when I saw Arizona on the schedule, I looked and I was like, Caleb Love is on that team. Caleb Love, I swear, this was his, by the way, I know COVID messed up with the schedule, but how does somebody have 9 career games against one opponent in college? How? Explain that to me. You can't. Yeah, COVID, and then, he could meet, Duke in the ACC tournament. He could meet Duke in the NCAA. It feels like Caleb Love is getting into Armando Bacot territory, where he just stays over and over and over again. And technically, this is his 5th season that he's played. 2020, he was a freshman for UNC, and now he's, I guess, a super senior for Arizona. But I was really worried about Caleb Love being on this schedule, especially after Arizona came into Cameron Indoor and beat Duke last year with the talent that this Duke team had. But Caleb Love shut down pretty much. 8 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 turnovers, 3 of 13 shooting, 1 of 9 from 3. I was a little more worried with KJ Lewis, who had 12 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals. He was a pest. Jaden Bradley, who knows if he doesn't get hurt early on and he's hobbling throughout the rest of the game, how much of an impact he had. He had 5 steals, 18 points, led the team in that. But I'm looking at this Duke team, and I know the cupcakes are going to be put in there. And Aaron saying, helps he play Duke twice a year for a couple of years. Yeah, that would go into the 9 total games that Caleb Love has had against Duke. Now, granted, like, you look at that schedule, he's only had 2 in the last 2 years. So in those other 3, he had, like, what's the math on that? 7? That's a good bit. That's a lot of games against Duke. I wonder, and this may be a good fact. This might be a good trivia question, like Chris Deluca likes to bring in for his Dugout Debrief, of what's the most amount of times a player has played another team in college basketball. Who knows? Maybe don't Google it. Don't Google it. Don't cheat. But we might throw that trivia question in either on our socials or, even on the show, and see if somebody can come up with the answer. But I'm really impressed because this Duke team isn't settling for cupcakes, because not only did they have a true road test against a top AP 25 team last week and won 69-55, but the Duke Blue Devils now will play Kansas tomorrow, who is number 1 in the nation. On neutral territory, it's going to be Kansas Jayhawks, number 1 in the nation, led by Hunter Dickinson, who was great last year, is good this year. And they're going to go up against Duke, who's currently ranked 11th because they did drop one of those games earlier this year to Kentucky. So, I mean, when you're getting tested against Kentucky, when you're getting contested against Arizona, when you're getting contested against Kansas, you're going to show and you're going to see how these young guys gel, to where when it does come ACC play time, when it does come to the tournament, you're going to see a more complete version of this Duke team, to where I don't think in February or March we'll look at this team as a team bunch of freshmen. Aaron, that comment was out of pocket. Just FYI, that comment was out of pocket. But Chris saying both Tobacco Road teams heading into an early season L to Kansas. Chris, okay, this is terrible because my 2 guests are trying to be out of pocket in the comments. So let's get off the Duke topic right now, because I can't trust these guys talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I can't trust these guys talking about Duke basketball or football. But I do want to talk some NFL, because we had a wild weekend. They recapped a good bit on the Gridiron Address last night, but we got to get into some more. we have more meat on the bone, and we have the Harbaugh returning tonight with the Ravens and the Chargers. So, without further ado, I'm going to invite the guy who's been blowing up the comments so far. And Jason's even being a little out of pocket towards Duke right now. Marquez and L versus Syracuse. Hey, thanks for Malik Brown. As a Duke fan, I really appreciate that. But from the Gridiron Address, first things first, he's not from First Things First, but I'll introduce him first. We got Mr. Aaron Schneider cooking some stuff up in the comments. Aaron, appreciate you, my friend, but I do not appreciate your comments in the chat.
I mean, look, everything I've said is true. You can't call me out of pocket for just stating facts.
I think I can. Also, somebody who's just a tad bit out of pocket. He has a little bit room to talk when, he's baseball, but I had to wear my World Series. Apparel today. And I'm sure he is too. We got the host of Dugout Debrief, the only guy working Thanksgiving Day. We got Chris Deluca. Chris, appreciate you having you on, but again, a little out of pocket with those comments.
Hey man, sorry. As Aaron said, everything's factual.
Out of pocket. But guys, I want to talk about what's been happening in the NFL world. You guys did a great job with the Gridiron Address. It is also available on demand. If you guys have not watched the Gridiron Address, it is available on demand. You can check it out on the YouTube channel for Boom Broadcasting. But Aaron's team actually had a really good showing against the Kansas City Chiefs after the Chiefs lost to the Buffalo Bills. Now, this team came in, and I was like, we see a championship slump. They may just limp into the playoffs and then just skyrocket. Well, no, they start the season 9-0 until a team who just matches up well against the Chiefs and very motivated Buffalo Bills team defeated Kansas City right before their bye week. And now the Chiefs come out, and I'm like, okay, this is a cupcake. This is a gimme game against Carolina. So many injuries on defense, nothing going on offense. And the Chiefs barely survived the Carolina Panthers with a last-second field goal. I mean, Aaron, you're the Panthers fan right here, but I gotta ask, what's going on with the Chiefs? Should we be concerned with the back-to-back Super Bowl champions?
I mean, there definitely needs to be some concern, but also not too much, because even when they're not playing well and they're struggling, they're still pulling out wins. So you can only be so concerned. Like when Carolina got that 2-pointer to tie it and they gave Mahomes a minute 46 to go down the field, I knew it was game over. This feels like when you give Tom Brady like a minute plus to make an 80-yard drive, it's just going to happen. It's the same kind of inevitability that we saw with Tom Brady and the Patriots, and we're seeing it with Mahomes and the Chiefs. I'd be a little concerned, if they run into Buffalo in the postseason, it could be tricky. They usually get it done against them in the postseason, though, but I'm like a little concerned. I'd say like a 4 out of 10, nothing too crazy, but I mean, it's still Patrick Mahomes, and Kelsey's kind of getting it together a little bit, but I'm not super worried about the Chiefs.
And it's interesting, Kelsey, you mentioned 6 catches, 62 yards. They're starting to use Noah Gray a little bit more. I mean, 4 catches on 4 targets, 2 touchdowns for himself. They got D-Hop to help with the Rashee Rice injury. Xavier Worthy is a very much hit and miss, unfortunately, for my fantasy football teams. But I don't want to talk about my fantasy football teams right now. Chris, are you concerned about the Chiefs? Because, I mean, this could have easily been a 9-2 start for the defending champions.
I mean, like Aaron said, I think there is some room for concern, but if anyone knows how to win a close game against a scrappy Carolina type or a really, really juggernaut like Baltimore, it's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he is fantastic. Like, the reference to Tom Brady. But the big thing I do want to point out is there are a lot of close games here. I mean, their best win is the Baltimore game all the way back in September 5th. But if you think about it, they beat Cincinnati by 1. They barely beat Atlanta. They only beat the Chargers by 7. Close games. I mean, Raiders only by 7. All these games are so close And I think that if they're going to falter, it's going to be in the regular season. But when it comes to Buffalo and them, we've seen this story before. Buffalo always wins in the regular season, and then they can't beat Kansas City. It's like, we can't beat these guys, I think is what Buffalo's got to say. But I think that there is some room for concern, but they always find a way.
They always find a way. And Jason, bringing up like one loss concern when the playoffs come, don't bet against Mahomes and Andy Reid. Mm-hmm. And I agree. Like, I'll do my top quarter rankings tomorrow. I got to decide, who I want at that number one spot. Kansas City's been there all year. Until you beat the man, you can't be the man, in my opinion. But, I mean, if you look at, the Broncos was a close game, Bucks, close game, Raiders, a close game. You lost to the Bills. You barely beat the Panthers. But then they have a divisional game this Friday, Black Friday, against the Raiders, who just lost Gardner Minshew to an injury. So now it's going to be like, okay, are you going to lose or put yourself in a position to lose against Desmond Ridder and a lackluster Raiders team? That would draw concern. I mean, it would be tough, but here's the main thing that I would be concerned about, guys, is, Chris, you mentioned it. Buffalo, how will they match up against Kansas City in the postseason? Because the Chiefs right now have a 1-game advantage over the Buffalo Bills. If they finish with the same record, Buffalo would then be the number one seed in the AFC, and the Chiefs wouldn't host the Bills. They would actually go on the road. So, Aaron, would that cause you more concern if the Chiefs have to go on the road to play Buffalo?
I mean, a little bit, but it's really hard to be concerned about this Chiefs team. They're really good. They're finding ways to win close games, and it's going to be hard for Buffalo to beat them multiple times in a season. I just, even in Buffalo, I would probably still lean towards the Chiefs.
Chris, what about you on that one?
I got to agree with Aaron. I mean, Orchard Park is a really, really hard place to play, especially in the elements. I mean, that's where the Steelers faltered last year in the first round of the playoffs. And, we put up a fight for the first half. And, I think Kansas City, it would be close. It would be one of those shootout games like we pretty much always see between those two teams. But I would still have to go with Kansas City simply because they will always find a way to beat anyone, especially the Bills.
Especially the Bills. And probably, they probably struggle against Carolina, but anybody would beat the New York Jets right now. Mike Tannenbaum, the former general manager of the New York Jets, has actually been recruited to help the Jets find their next general manager and their next head coach. Now, obviously, this is looking like the second most popular AA run that I know. That this experiment with Aaron Rodgers has not gone as anyone hoped. From that first series last year, tearing his Achilles, to this year, and the team just still not getting anything going out and getting Devontae Adams. That doesn't make any difference in the world. They've lost 2 straight. They're 3-8. And they've lost, 7, 8?
Yeah, I think it's 7 in a row.
Yeah, it's I think they had a Houston game in there, and I think it's like 7 of their last 8 right now. And it's just, it's doom and gloom there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a part of the long-term solution in New York. But my question to you guys is, how would you fix this New York Jets team or situation or put themselves on the right path? Chris, do you have any idea on how to pull off the miracle?
Well, and on a first note, obviously there's nothing you can do this year, but you would think that the Jets are a team like the Broncos in their Super Bowl year, where they were an older systems quarterback away from being a contender with all that young talent, especially in the offense side. Breece Hall, Devontae Adams, not so much young, but still a talented receiver. Garrett Wilson. But I think that they would need to move on from Aaron Rodgers. I don't think firing Robert Saleh was a good idea. I think that they're going to have to go and probably draft a quarterback, build around that quarterback, and hope that they can get a talented quarterback, because it's confusing. It's just on all levels and all aspects of the game where you would expect them to exceed. They are just failing expectations, and Garrett Wilson's having a respectable season despite Aaron Rodgers' best efforts. So,
hey, and also the trade rumors surrounding Garrett Wilson, especially when they acquired Devontae Adams, it's like, hey, and that could really hurt a wide receiver psyche. And Jason, Jason's like, that's like asking your ex-girlfriend
Dion
to find you a new girlfriend. Hey, does that work? I'm asking for a friend, obviously. Got the ex playing matchmaker for you, Aaron. It doesn't look like your fellow guy with the same name will lead them to victory, but how would you rebuild this Jets team?
I mean, I agree with Chris. You gotta get rid of Aaron Rodgers. He's not the solution. It had come out a few days ago. He wants to play in 2025, just not with the Jets, which is good for the Jets that he wants to go to, and they don't have to deal with any kind of disconnect there.
Future Raider.
You're not wrong. Or he just goes the Brett Favre route and goes to Minnesota. I mean, who knows? But I feel like you got to get a GM and head coach who are going to be on the same page and can work together. And there's a point that I think we've hit. You got to look at Woody Johnson as being a serious problem with this Jets organization. It ultimately comes down to him. I think he's responsible for a lot of this, and hopefully they can get it together. It would be nice to see. I don't really have any ill will towards the Jets, but you got to get a GM and a head coach who can work together really well and are on the same page. I feel like having a GM who also plays a role in finding a head coach might be good. So in my opinion, get your GM first and then have him provide his input into the head coaching search as well.
Well, and Aaron, I really like that idea as well. You can't hire a head coach and then hire a GM. Like you have to do it in order. Now we saw a certain team last year sign a free agent quarterback and draft one as well. As you saw the Atlanta Falcons, sign Kirk Cousins to a big deal and then trade or draft Michael Penix Jr. I don't see Aaron Rodgers staying here much longer. But what I could see is them going and taking a quarterback. Now, I don't think they should go after Shedeur Sanders. I have my own hesitation towards Shedeur Sanders that I'll probably get into more detail in a later time. But I know, in 2 years, like Arch Manning's going to be the guy, but I think this year Cam Ward could be the guy. Chris, I don't think Cam Ward would be a bad selection to put on this Jets team with Breece Hall, with Garrett Wilson, and see what he can do. And hopefully you can just put butts in the seats in New York.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm not going to call him a systems quarterback, but I think a guy like him who is experienced in college could really help out with some guys who are settling into their third, fourth year in the league. I definitely agree with that. And on the Shedeur Sanders take too, I don't think that Coach Dion is going to let his son play for a team that's that dysfunctional, to be completely honest with you. It would not surprise me. But again, we're going to talk about that in another episode. So
exactly. And Jason saying move to London. No. The London Jet, it'll be the London Jaguars before it's ever the London Jets. Aaron, would you like to see Cam Ward on the Jets?
Yeah, I think that would be a solid move. If you're going for one of these rookie quarterbacks, I think you should go for one of the two who have years of starting experience, a Cam Ward or a Dylan Gabriel. That's something that I look forward to going into more detail on in future episodes, because that's my favorite time of the season, honestly, is the leading up to the draft. I'm going to start doing more mocks here shortly once college football starts to wind down, but really looking forward to it. I think Cam Ward or Dylan Gabriel would probably be the best move for the Jets.
And Aaron does really good stuff on the draft. He also thought Bryce Young was going to be better than CJ Stroud. I think that's on recording somewhere. Until he can
that is quite literally out of pocket. You just straight up lied.
You just switched.
You just straight up lied.
Wait, did I do that?
Oh yeah, yes you did.
Did I do that? Or maybe it was Steve Urkel. So maybe I put in the wrong ballot. But somebody who's wanting their name on the ballot for MVP are some of these running backs, a position that was, honestly looked down upon. Why? Because, quote unquote, it's a passing league. Running doesn't matter. You shouldn't give running backs contracts. Well, you look at, some of the more successful teams. You have Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. You have Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. And, even going down Josh Jacobs, like all three of those guys were free agents and were like, hey, their old teams weren't going to give them that, next contract because they weren't sure about how many legs they had. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's fourth in rushing right now. The only teams who are really struggling in the top 10 when it comes to rushing are the Panthers with Chuba Hubbard and Tony Pollard with the Titans. Other than that, running seems to be a recipe for success. And Saquon and Derrick Henry are two guys who have contributed to winning ways in Philadelphia and Baltimore that just weren't there in the past. Or if they were there, it wasn't to this extent. So, guys, it's been a while. I think it's been since Adrian Peterson in his big year in Minnesota that we've seen a running back win MVP. It's looking like two of these guys, Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, should be in the award race. And honestly, should probably take it because I don't know of a quarterback who has had as much impact as these two guys have right here. I'll be honest. I don't know of one. And, Lamar Jackson obviously has the best passer rating, but I don't think he's doing what he's doing without Derrick Henry. Aaron, when you look at this running back race in this MVP race, would you want to give it to Saquon or Derrick Henry?
Honestly, I think both of them are going to have a really solid case. I feel like if Buffalo closes out the season really well, and if they manage to get home field advantage, I think they'll give it to Josh Allen. Between Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, I got to give it to Derrick Henry. I think he means more to Baltimore than Saquon does to Philly. And Saquon's looked better than any Philly running back that we've seen for a long time. But we've seen other, more middle of the pack running backs look really good behind that Philly offensive line. So I just think that what Derrick Henry brings to Baltimore is more valuable because we've seen other players succeed to a pretty good extent. Like Miles Sanders looked great. I had high hopes for him. You see him outside of Philly, he looks like garbage, and he's not sticking in Carolina. He's gone after this season, without a doubt. But ultimately, I feel like it's going to end up going to Josh Allen more than likely, but I would absolutely love to see Derrick Henry get MVP.
And, Jason bringing up 2012 was the last time. And, Drew Code Sports Talk, which I hope I can announce, Cody from Drew Code Sports Talk will be back on Out of Pocket tomorrow. We got a huge slate. We got Drew Code Sports Talk's own Cody. We got Wayne from Sideline Savants, and we have this guy right here, Jason from 3 from Deep and Sideline Savants. Those are going to be our guys picking for tomorrow's Out of Pocket, so it'll be good. Drew Code's got the question: should Barkley be favored more than Lamar Jackson? Chris,
I mean, I gotta agree and disagree with Aaron's points here. So if I do have to agree that I think it's going to come down to Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's going to end up getting it, especially if Buffalo can have a run, continue to push like they are, and continue to stay elite. And to Jason's point with Barkley, yeah, I kind of wish that they would, because I haven't been fantasy. I was down by 20 going into last night, into Sunday night, and pending scoring adjustment, I have a 2-point win. We'll see. Again, pending scoring adjustment. But I would have to disagree with Aaron in the fact that simply because of Barkley's effectiveness in the receiving game, if I was to pick between Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, like, yes, I know that, scoring at least one touchdown every game. We're going to see if he continues that streak tonight, Derrick Henry. I would still have to give it to Saquon Barkley because on those third and mediums, he is receiving out of the backfield. I think that he is doing roughly just as much as Derrick Henry is with Baltimore, if I'm being honest with you.
Aaron, would you agree with that?
It's tough. We're seeing two phenomenal seasons. It's really tricky to pick, which running back I like more. I mean, it's exciting to see a little kind of resurgence from some running backs because, like you said earlier, the position was getting a lot of what I felt to be unnecessary hate. And it's warranted to an extent because the shelf life of that position is really short and it can change in the blink of an eye. I mean, look at Todd Gurley's an example. He just fell off the face of the earth after being arguably the best running back in the league for a few seasons.
Zeke is another example of that too.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, while we're on the topic of Zeke, I just got to remind the people of your preseason prediction that he was going to have 11 rushing touchdowns.
That is so, it's out of pocket for
your take is insane.
But the use of Zeke has been ridiculous this year. I mean, how do you get a guy who specializes in those short yard situations and then not use him? I mean, and this is weird. If the trajectory keeps going, his rushing yards per game average will drop 9 consecutive seasons. And that'll be the first time in NFL history that's happened for a player. That, how are you just not using him in games? 10 games played, 58 carries. Just there's literally just nothing.
Did he have any health issues this year?
Not really, but he did have disciplinary issues.
Yeah, he was suspended a practice, right? I think
he was suspended a game, which I think there was dispute of how much he was going to be used, and probably he was told more than what they've actually used him for.
Yeah.
But Rico Dowdle, when he's been on the field, he's run really hard, so that's good for him. Jason saying Philly would be pedestrian without Saquon. Ravens last year, #1 rushing team.
I don't say pedestrian, but I would say that there would be a difference. I would say that last night would have been a lot closer, if not for him. The Rams, I think, would have probably hit that spread if they would have, or if Barkley wasn't there.
Oh, yeah. And Jason dropping his MVP ballot. Josh Allen 1, Saquon 2, Lamar 3, Henry 4. Do you guys agree with this?
That's not a bad list, honestly. It's good. I mean, I'd probably put Henry at 2, Saquon at 3, Lamar at 4, but that's not too far off from what I got.
Yeah, no, that's roughly exactly what I have, actually.
Wow. I don't know if I would rate Josh Allen as high, but he has had to overcome a little bit more with Stephon Diggs going out and then getting Amari Cooper, but some of the injuries there for Buffalo. But the Buffalo Bills are not playing tonight. Neither is Saquon. Saquon had his showing last night. Derrick Henry hopes to match that tonight as the Baltimore Ravens, more particular, the John Harbaugh Baltimore Ravens, play Jim Harbaugh, his new team, the LA Chargers. Guys, I am so excited because the Harbaugh is back. Obviously, that was a huge theme back when Jim was with the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers and Ravens play each other in the Super Bowl. The lights go out. There's this huge, what happened? What happened? And then, of course, the Baltimore Ravens are able to give Ray Lewis a good, proper send-off as Super Bowl champion. And now they face off again. Jim Harbaugh trying to resurrect the LA Chargers and is actually doing a pretty decent job with the amount of stuff he has to work with. The LA Chargers currently 7-3. And if you look at the playoff standings, the LA Chargers would be the 5th seed in the AFC if the playoffs started today. So it's going to be big. This is also big because the Chargers and Ravens are both currently second in their division. So this could very well determine who's the 5th seed when it comes playoff time and who's the 6th seed come playoff time if they're not able to go and get a division crown. So, guys, this is a big game. How do you see it shaping up? Ravens, Chargers, Chris, who do you think needs to win more and who do you think actually wins?
I mean, I think the Ravens need it more simply because, they have a big opportunity. I mean, my Steelers, we just, did not have a great Thursday night game and the snow game at First Energy Stadium. And this is an opportunity for them to see, and they need to seize it. This is a tough Chargers team. A Chargers team, for me, that really exceeded expectations. I would say overall that the Chargers are a lock for a wild card, but Baltimore needs this more, and that's why I think is going to get it. I think it's going to be a close game because they have the Ravens have the 30th ranked pass defense. I think Josh Allen see where our thoughts were. I think Justin Herbert is going to have a fantastic game passing for at least 250 yards against that really lackluster Ravens defense. But I still got to go with King Henry and Lamar and crew, and I'm giving it to Baltimore. I'm going to go say high scoring game, 31-28.
31-28. Now, Jason bringing up fantasy points. He needs 18 from Derrick Henry to win his fantasy week. I need a very similar week from Derrick Henry in a lot of my leagues. Maybe even more than 18 points with how it's going. And also, like Chris bringing up, how the Ravens defense has done. Ravens, last I checked, were 32nd of 32 NFL teams. For anyone who doesn't put 2 and 2 together, that is last in the league when it comes to fantasy points given up to wide receivers. So rookie Ladd McConkey might have a field day if Justin Herbert can locate the ball the way he can. And then Aaron, Jason also bringing up, do the Ravens feed Derrick Henry to get him Saquon numbers because they feel he is the better running back?
I don't think they'll feed him just for that reason. I think that John Harbaugh is a smart coach and he's gonna do what Baltimore needs to win. He's not just gonna feed Derrick Henry to boost his individual numbers. I just don't see that happening. And it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be high scoring like Chris thinks. The Chargers I think they have the best scoring defense in the league. Yeah, they do. They only allow 14.5 points per game. I think we could see like a low 20 score for the winner. I'm leaning LA, honestly. I think the Chargers might get it done. Their defense will be just good enough, and Baltimore has the worst passing defense in the league. I think we'll see Ladd McConkey, Will Dissly step up. Maybe Quentin Johnston gets a big play. He's having a solid year after, people were really low on him after his rookie season. I'm going to go Chargers 24, Baltimore 17.
So he's going 24-17. Guys, I'll be honest with this one. I'm leaning more towards Chris than I am Aaron. I feel like it's going to be a high scoring game. I feel like this is going to be probably the highest scoring primetime game we've gotten. I think Ladd McConkey, he's actually got the questionable tag, but he's expected to play tonight with a shoulder injury. I still think he has a great game. Quentin Johnston with his speed. J.K. Dobbins is healthy right now. Herbert's going to want to show out. And then you have Baltimore with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. I just don't see this Chargers defense stopping them. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I am going to go ahead and say it's going to be 41-37 Baltimore. I think it's going to be a large scoring game. And Jason's comment right here, do the Ravens feed the king? Derrick Henry has 175 rushing yards and 3 of those touchdowns. I am calling it here. Now, this isn't the Zeke gets 11 touchdowns because guess what? Baltimore actually likes to use Derrick Henry. And that is why
it also helps that he is significantly better this year than Zeke has been at any point in his entire career. He's just a way better player. That's why they're using him.
That might be out of pocket. That might be out of pocket. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott led the league 3 out of 4 years in rushing, by the way. Just saying. He was great. He was elite.
Oh no, he was really good there for a while. I would still take this Derrick Henry over probably most versions of Ezekiel Elliott.
Chris, is that out of pocket?
I'm sorry, man. I actually have to go with Aaron here. I mean, and I think a lot of that's because of utilization. It's not necessarily Zeke's fault. It's just he was there in the early Dak days when Dak was on fire and they would go and throw the ball a lot more. I mean, obviously they utilized Zeke a lot better than they do now, but that was a different point in his career. I think that if they utilized Zeke to the level that the Ravens utilize Henry, we might be closer in the argument, but simply because of how much they passed the ball at that point, I'm going to have, despite him leading and rushing 3 to 4 years, I'm still going to have to side with Aaron on this one.
I will say, for the sake of the argument, Derrick Henry has a career high in average yards per carry with 6. His previous high was 5.4 back in 2020. Also, his career high was in yards 2027. Career high in 17. He is on pace to break those numbers right now. So maybe it is in the cards for Derrick Henry have a career year, and I'll keep asking myself why, Jerry, why? Jason saying don't put Zeke in the same breath. He's just mad as a Giants fan. Zeke ran over him, in his early years. But, I digress. Derrick Henry's great. Derrick Henry going to help the Baltimore Ravens, win, just like our Boom Broadcasting team is helping provide you great content for this Thanksgiving time. Aaron Schneider with the Gridiron Address had on Chris last night, had on Carson from Lombardi Party. Chris, again, the only guy dropping something on Thanksgiving Day, the hardest working guy, talking baseball at least. He's got Dugout Debrief Thursday at noon that you guys can grub on as you guys eat turkey, watch some football, and watch Dugout Debrief right before the Lions take the field. Aaron finds that hilarious for some reason.
No, that's not. This is what I'm talking about. Derrick Henry's going Hall of Fame. Zeke's the winner and all-you-can-eat buffet. That's what I was laughing about.
Hey, feed Zeke. Feed Zeke. That's all I'm saying. Feed Zeke.
I think they need to stop feeding him. He's, like you said, he's got, 58 carries on the year?
Yeah, nothing. Literally nothing. I mean, that's like, 5? That's like 5 carries a game. A running back can't feast on 5 carries a game. I mean, come on. That's not enough.
I mean, look, if he was showing up to practice and actually looking good, I feel like they would give him the ball more. I don't think you can entirely blame Dallas for not using him enough. Clearly, he has not showed up like they would expect him to be. If he looked good, I think they would use him, and him not having a very high usage rate is indicative that he's just not good enough at this point.
I also don't think Dallas knows what they're doing when it comes to offensive play call this year, to be completely honest.
You're not wrong.
It's confusing, some of it. And I'm sure you can agree, not in a mean way, but you can agree, Michael. It's just some of the calls that McCarthy makes are just wild.
Yeah, and I dropped an article on Fans First Sports Network last week about life after Mike McCarthy, because it's becoming a little more obvious. This is the final year for Mike McCarthy. And I can post that on socials again if you guys haven't checked that out. But seeing some of the options, should the Dallas Cowboys go after Bill Belichick or a Brian Flores or a Mike Vrabel, bring back Kellen Moore. These are all options I, evaluated from both perspectives. But it's becoming very clear this offense has become stagnant with Mike McCarthy despite an upset win. And Jason, I guess this is a good way to end tonight's show. Derrick Henry being a top 5 running back of all time, period.
It's possible. Mm-hmm. We're seeing him play at a really high level, later on into his career that you don't really see with a lot of running backs. He feels like, one of those unicorn type running backs that can be a really good contributor later into his career, like a Frank Gore type of player, which he recently hit 10,000 career yards, I believe.
for Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry, yeah. He's really up there.
He's
I think
10,687.
Yeah, I think he could.
I got Chris right there.
I'm totally honest with you guys. I have Football Reference up just because the argument I was about to make with that. So I'm going to make a similar argument that I've made in my baseball arguments, is that you looking at the rushing leaders all time, looking at guys like Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, even Jerome Bettis, Steelers legend. They're fantastic for their time, but the thing is the game changes. So you have to take the GOAT conversation in any sport and base off of time period, because Derrick Henry is going to get the defense is the best it's ever been. Health-wise, these guys are athletic freaks, and that's why I would put Henry above, not even going to say who, I would put Henry above some of these people that we consider at the end of his career, that we consider in the GOAT conversation with running back, simply because of the athletic freaks that he's had to play against versus who people in the past have had to play against. It's not any shot at them.
That's pretty fair. Derrick Henry also currently 24th on that rushing yard list, and is the only active player with the most yards. So there's no active player above him. And most of them are Hall of Famers or will be Hall of Famers. So Derrick Henry continuing to rise up the ranks right there. Does he get to Emmitt Smith 8,000 more yards? More than likely not. But he's a one of a kind athlete, and Jerry should have grabbed him. That's that's it. That's the post. That's the post, guys. And that is all we have for Out of Pocket today, guys. Again, go check out Dugout Debrief this Thursday. Go catch Gridiron Address, the replay that they do between the afternoon and the primetime game. And it's been fun. Out of Pocket's going to be back tomorrow with some premature NFL Thanksgiving picks. Cody from Drew Code Sports Talk, Wayne Thomas from Sideline Savants, Jason from Sideline Savants, and 3 from Deep will be on to talk about that. No nightcap tonight. As I mentioned beginning of the episode, Mike is enjoying Raw Live, but he will be back for a nightcap this Friday for SmackDown. And before Out of Pocket's back tomorrow, you got 3 from Deep from earlier today to enjoy. You got an It Stinks Wrestling of Destiny special combo talking about Thanksgiving films and Survivor Series this weekend. He combined both of his podcasts for a one-of-a-kind episode. And then tomorrow, Shannon's got your quick hits at its new time of 12 p.m. And Dad and the Boys will drop 3 p.m. tomorrow. And, of course, Out of Pocket will be back tomorrow at 5:30. But, guys, for Chris, for Aaron, for myself, I appreciate you guys, people in the comments. Jason saying, great job. I appreciate you, Jason. Go check out 3 from Deep. Drew Code Sports Talk. Great show. Appreciate you. I was on his channel. It was a phenomenal, fantastic interview. If you guys haven't listened to it, you guys want to, I talk about Boom Broadcasting, how it initially started. I talked about, Dallas Cowboys and everything in between. It was a great time with Cody. Can't wait to have Cody, Jason, and Wayne on tomorrow. Chris, Aaron, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all. And guys, we're going to get out of here, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. We had a ball making it. Thank you very much.